I started letter. It was really random. It was back in university, and my typography teacher, he was like, you know, guys, there is this thing, you know, called lettering. Comes from calligraphy and blah blah blah. And he's like, and I think we should learn it. But do you know how to do lettering? And he's like, no, I don't. But I'm gonna learn alongside with you. You know, like these things you always do but you don't realize that you do. So for example, you know, I was studying to being an engineer and I failed at that. Thank God I did. And I remember like in exams and everything, I used to do letters, you know, around and I would just like decorate my exams. I was always doing that creation of letters, but nobody told me that I could actually make letters for a living. Like that was a concept that was introduced to me almost by the end of my university by this teacher that I was telling you before. I was like the kid for everything. So I was the junior designer that would just like do pretty much everything. But then I thought like, listen, if that was a gig that I could get as a solopreneur, I could make way more money than what they're paying me right now. Because I realized that like kind of like being employed thing was not my thing at all. And we decided, the both of us decided to just like take the leap. And I remember my creative director told me like, you don't have the muscle to go on your own yet. And I was like, I know I don't have the muscle. I'd rather do it now than just like get comfortable, get a better position, and then I'll never do it because I'll be too scared.
If someone asks you like, hey, I'm just very introvert and I find it hard to be on camera and stuff. How can I show up authentically without making it cringe, like as you say?
Find that person that you love and just like talk to them. And I think that's it. You show your personality and you will find your tribe. You're an extrovert, there's a lot of extroverts. If you're an introvert, there's a lot of introverts. So you're gonna find those people for sure. You have to create an income stream and like dedicate some time to it. And then after you start becoming good at that and it kind of like brings you revenue, then it's time to maybe create another one.
Hello and welcome back to Open Studio. I'm your host, Martina Flor, and as promised, interview episodes are back. And in these special episodes, I have honest conversations with artists, designers, and creatives to uncover their stories and dig into the specific tactics they use to build a successful career around their skills and the work they love doing. And today we're kicking things off big with a big guest, Jimbo Bernaus. Jimbo is a lettering artist, designer, and educator based in Barcelona, Spain, and the co-founder of Shoutbam Creative Studio. He has worked with brands like Paperlike, Carlsberg, Stabilo, and Booking.com, sharing his passion for bold, expressive letter forms. With over 10 years of experience, he teaches lettering through YouTube tutorials, Patreon, and digital products, building a thriving community of creatives. Jimbo's approach blends playfulness, storytelling, and hands-on techniques, making learning both engaging and practical. Jimbo, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Hello. I'm doing pretty well. Yeah, I've been recording the whole morning. So after this, I'm going to go for a walk. But I'm feeling... Yeah, I mean, you know those mornings when you do a lot of stuff and then you just feel good. And I think that's going to be it for me today. I'm not going to work more. So I'm going to have a conversation with you. I'm going to go for lunch. I'm going to go for a walk. And that's going to be it for today. So I'm feeling pretty good.
Amazing. Where are you right now? In which part of Spain? Because you told me that you are right now in where you were born or something like this.
Yes, I'm spending few months here where I was born. The name of the the name of the city is Mollerussa, so it's a little bit complicated.
Yeah.
So I've been here for 2 months now, and I'm already like itching to go somewhere else. I'm usually living in Barcelona, but you know how rents go. You know that you finish the contract and then you have to find something else. So it was around summer, and I knew that I had to be on vacation for like a month and a half. My contract ended and I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna go back to my town. I'll be here for a few months, and then hopefully I'll go back to Barcelona. Or, you know, if anybody has another idea, I can always go live somewhere else. So yeah, let's see what's gonna happen soon.
Amazing. You can DM Jimbo on Instagram if you have any ideas for him where to go next.
Send me locations.
I'm so excited, Jimbo, to have you on the show today because you have such an entrepreneurial spirit as a creative. And what I find, I've been following you for a while on social networks, and also we met a couple of times. And what I find especially interesting about you is how many different outlets you have for your skills. You teach, you run a creative studio, you do work for clients, you have your YouTube channel. So for those that may not be familiar with you and your work. Just let's kick the things off by telling us a little bit about yourself and how you got into lettering.
Okay. I started lettering. Well, it's a good story that I always like telling because I started lettering. It was really random. I remember that it was back in university. I was probably like 13 years ago or 12 years ago or something like this. And my typography teacher, that, by the time we were doing typography and we were on glyphs and, actually I'm still selling one of my first typographies that I did in that class. So I'm really grateful for him. I always call him out because, he was lovely. And he came to class one day and he was like, guys, there is this thing, called lettering that comes from calligraphy and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, and I think we should learn it. And we were all like, but do you know how to do lettering? And he's like, no, I don't. But I'm going to learn alongside with you. So I remember that he would just, go home. He was running a creative studio as well. So he would just like learn and come and teach everything in an easier way, if that makes sense. And I think like even my style of teaching right now is like, I always, like I get books. Like, for example, last month on Patreon, we were covering Art Nouveau, for example. So I got a lot of books, I got a lot of things, and I studied it for like a week or two. And then when I knew like what the thing was about, then I started teaching it in a way that like people don't have to go through the books and all that, like, but I make it easier for them. So I think that was like the thing that inspired me the most with my teacher, Mark. And also, after this, I started traveling, and then lettering kind of like became a thing. I kind of like, I blended, because I studied graphic design, so I kind of like blended the two things. So I always say, like, when someone is like, what can I do to learn lettering? I'm like, well, I think it's good to learn other things as well. So like, design and letters and calligraphy also, and things like that, they all come together. So yeah, I went a little bit all over the place, but this is how I got introduced to lettering. And then you were also telling me, Martina, that you asked me so that I do a lot of things, and that should I talk about that, or like?
For sure. So you now have your YouTube channel, and you also have your Patreon. You do work for clients. You do all this different stuff.
Yeah.
Great.
So
how did that evolve? I mean, before we get into that, actually, I wanted to go back shortly to what you mentioned, which is this. I think is such an important thing. I think that's such a good answer when someone asks you, like, okay, how do I get started with learning lettering? And it's about blending a lot of different things. On one hand, you have the design aspect, the systems that have to do with, working within the alphabet and those boundaries. On the other hand, you have calligraphy and the origin of letter forms. On the other hand, you have illustration. No, it's a blend of all these different things. And I'm just wondering, because I see that a lot of us that are in this industry of lettering, that we were initially graphic designers, or we studied graphic design, and then we got into this. Why do you think this is the case? Or do you think this is a pattern? And also, what drew you to lettering specifically? What did you find interesting in that? That you said, okay, I'm gonna dive deeper into this.
Yeah, I think letters were kind of like the default when I did graphic design. Like, whether we were doing some InDesign or some Illustrator, a design or something. I always try to find, typographies and for some reason, like, I never liked going to Illustrator. Like, for example, like designers that do logos, I don't enjoy the process of going to Illustrator and kind of like try all the typographies that there are. Like, I don't like that, like sometimes I see, before, when I was doing more like logo design and stuff, I used to see I was like, I was doing the image and like the colors and this and that, and then I always kind of like envisioned the typography for some reason. I was like, oh, I think this would look cool like in that way, and instead of trying to find a font. So I think like all the time that I didn't find the right font, I just invested it in learning how to create that font, right? So so I think that was one of the key motivators, I think. And also like, like these things that you always do, but you don't realize that you do. So for example, when I was a child, I remember like I used to be like very bad at physics and all that. So I kind of like failed more like this. I was studying to being an engineer and I failed at that. Thank God I did.
Look at that.
I thank God, because I didn't enjoy. I'm not saying that it's not good, but I'm like, for me, I just didn't enjoy enough. And I remember like in exams and everything, I used to do letters, around, and I would just like decorate my exams, and then yeah, I think like I was kind of always doing that creation of letters, but I couldn't, like, nobody told me that I could actually make letters for a living. Like, that was a concept that was introduced to me almost by the end of my university by this teacher that I was telling you before. So
Hey, I'm interrupting the conversation just to let you know that Jimbo is going to be one of our guest instructors in the Lettering Seminar 2025. As you know, the Lettering Seminar is my signature program to learn the art and business of lettering, and it happens just once a year. So if you want to be part of this year's edition, make sure you sign up for the waiting list on the Lettering Seminar.com. Again, the letteringseminar.com. I'm going to add this to the show notes so that you can find the link. But make sure you sign up so that I can let you know when registrations open. The program is starting mid-April, so make sure you sign up now for the waiting list so that I can let you know when registrations are open and you can jump in right away. Now, back to the show. And it's interesting because it seems that what drew you into lettering is the fact that you couldn't find things. So when it came to choosing a certain font for a project or for communicating something, you couldn't find the right thing. So learning how to draw letter forms was a way of, creating those things that you wanted to see in the world, in a way, if we put it in a poetic way. But you were actually covering those gaps that you couldn't find through, choosing fonts. And I find that it's such a good motivator in a way. And I'm wondering, when was the moment where you realized this was going to be the thing, that you wanted to do this professionally? What was the tipping point there? Because I can imagine you, doing dribbles on your exams and trying to tweak the fonts so that they looked a little bit more like you wanted them to look. But then, when was the moment where you realized, okay, I'm gonna go down this path, or this could be a thing for me?
Yeah, I think I've decided that when the first time that I charged for a logotype that was done with my own letters. I think then it was when I really decided that, okay, like, I can actually do this. I enjoy the process of it. I enjoy tweaking. I'm like such a like detailed person. I'm a perfectionist, and I think lettering gave me that opportunity of like being like, a serif is so important, or like the little swash is so important. It can communicate so much, and so I think like that first time when I did a logotype back when I started traveling. So I did my Erasmus in Estonia, here in Europe. And
just for those that don't know, Erasmus is a program where you get to do an internship somewhere else in Europe.
Yes.
Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah, it could be both, like an internship, or like you get to do one of your years of university, of like the bachelor. You get to do it outside. So I did my third year of bachelor outside. And yeah, and I think like I charged. I remember that I charged €70 for that logo. Like, that was like 11 years ago, and then and there I was like, you know what, like, this is the thing. And then I started publishing things, and I mean, like, 11 years ago, that there was obviously a lot of lettering artists, but not as many as today, right? So it was kind of easy to get traction on Instagram back then, because the market was not saturated. And so like then I started doing more logos for like that $70, $100, and then I started realizing that was the thing. And then I think like another big thing was that I loved studying in Estonia, and I remember that for one of the assignments I could just use the silk screen studio all by myself. I never used it, and I decided to do a lettering project. And I was just there, you know, doing t-shirts and all that. And I think like, that's it. I fell in love. And then when I came back, I was just like, I'm just going to do lettering. That's it.
That's a good. And like going back to this first logotype that you created, which is, I think these are really milestones in one's, in like the career of a creative or a lettering artist or a designer. You know, the moment where you're paid for doing work you really enjoy, that's such a good feeling, and that's also an indicator of like, well, maybe this is the way. I know it was for me, and I know that it is for many of the students and creatives that I work with, and I hear the same from you. So I'm wondering, from that moment on, if there was, I can imagine that perhaps there was no strategy at that time. When you look back, you think like, oh, okay, I made these steps, you know, like I realized, okay, there's a market for my skills. I could get paid for doing this. And then what came after? What came after in terms of building on top of that so that you could, you know, build your career as a lettering artist?
Yeah, I think after Estonia, I went back to Barcelona, and then I moved to Croatia.
Yeah.
And then I co-founded a studio there. So I think, well, actually, let me backtrack a little bit, because I think the one, and like the other motivator was that, you know, when I was living in Croatia, which I lived there for 7 years, I found a job in a marketing agency. That was really like, it was a really cool agency, and I learned a lot, and especially from my art directors and creative directors, and like, it was really good. But then, you know, I realized that I was like the kid for everything. So I was the junior designer that would just like do pretty much, you know, everything. Like I would do, I don't know, like the whole identity for a brand. I would do illustration. I would do InDesign. I would do magazines. I would do like the whole thing, right? And then there was a couple jobs there that I enjoyed a lot. That were like, I did calligraphy actually for 200 bottles of wine, which was like this premium wine and everything. So like that, I realized like, hey, I could actually. So get this, right? I think I spent like maybe like 5 days doing these 200 wines, right? But then I thought like, listen, if that was a gig that I could get as a solopreneur, I could make way more money than what they're paying me right now for a whole month. And I did that, and I did this, you know, like these other 1,000 things. And I was like, that has to end. Because I realized that like the agency or like the studio kind of like being employed thing was not my thing at all. Nothing against it. I learned a lot, and I made a lot of connections, which I think that's something we can talk about because it's very important as well. But it was just not my thing, you know? And I was like, let's you know, do this studio with Thea, and we decided, the both of us decided to just like take the leap and just like, that's not the name of your book, is it?
Yeah, it's
right.
The Big Leap is one of
the
them.
Big Leap. Yeah, exactly. Now I was like, leap. That sounds familiar. So yeah. And then we decided that, and I remember my creative director told me like, you still have you don't have the muscle to go on your own yet, like, because by that time I think I was 1 year employed there. And I was like, I know I don't have the muscle, but I'd rather do it now. I'd rather risk it all now that I'm 20. I think I was 26 by that time. I'd rather do it now than just like get comfortable, get a better position, and then I'll never do it because I'll be too scared. So yeah.
That's so good. I can totally resonate with that story. I actually went into that, went all in with that, and I got really comfortable in my position as a creative, like as a creative director. And then it was so tough to leave that job that was well paid. You know, you have gained your position. So I think that is a good call. And I think it happens to many designers and creatives that they get a regular job as designers in an agency or a marketing agency, as you said. And it's true, when they make the math of like that one job that they are doing among many other things that they do, because you do the calligraphy for the bottles, but then you do also, you know, the brochure and this and that. And when you do the math of that one thing, you think like, okay, I could live on that, and then it will make a lot more sense for me to focus just on that and get the whole thing, rather than being here and like doing like general work, right? So I'm thinking back to these moments where you built yours, or you started your studio back then, and you now have built a very strong personal brand. And I do, when I look at your work and I look at your YouTube channel, I can totally identify, hey, this is Jimbo, you know? So, and I wonder, what were some of the steps you took to get your work noticed and to build that brand in that way? If you could, I know that oftentimes it's hard to put like all the pieces of the puzzle together, but when you look back, what are some of the elements that you think helped you back then and now, also to build that sort of personal brand and that identity in front of the world?
Wow. Okay. I think it's a good question. Tough at the same time. I think what helped a lot since the beginning was kind of like being myself, and that's something that, you know, like when I started doing videos or whatever, you know, you know, right now, like when I look at these videos, I cringe a lot, but I think that's a good sign, because, you know, I thought I was myself in the beginning, but I'm trying to be this persona of like, you know, I'm this professional, blah blah blah. But then as years go by, I think I'm just like more and more comfortable of being like, this is who I am, this is what I do, this is how I talk. I also swear a lot, which in the podcast I won't do, but like I usually swear a lot, and I'm like, listen, if I swear a lot one day, well, that's kind of me, like that's my persona, and you know. So I think the first thing is being myself. I think that's the first thing. Then the second thing, I think, is like when you have this big passion towards something, it just becomes natural. You know, now if like you tell me like how, like this personal brand that I see, you know, this is kind of like, we could draw a line here in between like this personal brand that you can have, and then the work that you do that has a style, right? That's like the word style that's like talked a lot nowadays, and I always say like, I actually have no idea. I think the thing is, it's just like, the only thing that I know, that I've always known, is that I enjoy this a lot. Like you know, I get up on Sunday and I'm like, let's draw. Like that's my key motivator always, you know. I love my Mondays. Like getting up in the morning and getting some coffee and like start drawing and like start planning, and it's just like, I love it so much. I don't know what I would do if it wasn't for this. So I think the fact that I love it a lot made me create so many pieces that I cannot even account for right now. Like I don't even know how many things I created. And then I think the other thing as well is just like, it's kind of like trial and error. You know, there's this new thing called Behance. I said to myself 11 years ago, okay, let's put everything on Behance. Then, Instagram is now trendy. Also 11 years ago, let's go to Instagram. And then, you know, you start like flooding this, you know, websites with your work, and you start creating connections, you start creating friends. And I think in the end, it's just that, you know, I think it's, I think that the personal brand kind of came kind of by accident, I would say. You know, and then obviously, like after you create all this and you start getting clients and you start getting all this work and you start, you know, then you have to create systems, which, by the way, I'm still like sometimes I think about myself like, you know, am I an entrepreneur? And I'm like, yeah, I mean, you are, but you're more of an artist, because sometimes I forget to do, you know, to put all the systems in place. And sometimes I just like, my passion is so big that I forget that I actually have to kind of like control myself a little bit and make this a sustainable business. So sometimes I have like these two voices of like, just draw, you know, and then the other one, okay, but you have to do this and contracts and this and that, and you have to, you know, kind of like be this owner that you are. It's kind of like crazy, but yeah, I think that's what you asked. I'm not sure, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm hearing. So you mentioned that this personal brand of yours that is so strong came out naturally, and I think there's a lot of truth to it. And at the same time, all of the things that you mentioned, I think are the elements of a brand. You know, when you speak about like the passion and something you really enjoy doing, that means that because you enjoy doing it, you do a lot of it. And therefore you put out a lot of work, which helps you build a style, because the more you do, the more you find the things that interest you, the things that inspire you, the shapes that you're drawn to. And then this element of being yourself, I think is such an important element as well, because before getting into this call, I was watching a YouTube video of one of the moment you presented, you introduced Patreon to your YouTube channel, and you were talking about this, and I thought like, that's so natural, that's so Jimbo, and and at the same time, you were a professional, you were being the person presenting this new project of yours, and at the same time you had these funny moments where you were like doing jokes and stuff, and I thought like, that seems like easy to do, but at the end of the day is what I think most of us struggle the most. And what happens often is that artists, because they struggle the most with that, with being authentic in front of the camera, in front of on Instagram Reels or whatever it is that they have to show up, they hide themselves behind the work. So they believe, okay, so I'm just gonna hide myself and I'm just gonna show the work all the time. And I think that when it comes to personal brand, and nowadays is such a differentiator, I think that's a key factor, like that you show yourself, that you see the artist behind the work, especially nowadays with AI and ChatGPT and all that stuff, that people are they want to make sure that you're a person, that there's a person behind the work, that if they're going to work with you, if they're going to join your Patreon, if they're going to hire you for something, that you are going to be a person, that they like you, that they can resonate with you. So I think those elements that you name are so key for building a personal brand. And I'm just putting those together because I know that many people that are listening right now, they're wondering, okay, I want to build a personal brand like Jimbo has, and how do I do this? And one element that I wanted to go back to is this element of being yourself. So Jimbo, how are you yourself when you show up on camera and stuff? Just to give the audience a little bit, or listeners a little bit of a hint of, what are the things that perhaps you have some tricks, some rituals that you do before you go on camera or on a live on YouTube or whatever. So if someone asks you like, hey, I'm just very introvert and I find it hard to be on camera and stuff. How can I show up authentically without making it cringe, like as you say?
I think like and I heard this a lot of times from YouTubers, and I think the most important thing is that you have to, when you look at the camera, you have to treat it like it's your best friend. And everybody has a friend, right? Everybody has somebody. Even like your dog, like talk to your dog. It's fine. Just try to teach your dog how to do lettering, how to like find that living being that actually you trust, and just like imagine that you're talking to them, and I think that's one of the most important things, because before I think I was like, when I was talking to the camera, I was like talking to everybody, and then when you talk to everybody, especially as you could have seen by now, I'm not an introvert, but like I guess that for an introvert to like speaking to a lot of people, that kind of like is a little bit aggressive, a little bit maybe too much. So yeah, like I talked to a single person. Also, I think the the issue that I had before was that I'm also a singer. I don't know if I told you, Martina, that before.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I'm a singer. Well, I had a break for 10 years when I was traveling, but now I'm back at it. And so I used to be an introvert when I was a kid, and then I did something to break out of that comfort zone. And I think singing was like the thing that helped me the most. So I would say like, it's also like important maybe like to find something else where like you get a little bit more comfortable around people, maybe do like small gatherings, maybe like with 2-3 friends, and then try to remember who you are in those situations, and then like how you can translate that to build that personal brand. But for me, it was really easy because I'm very loud, and I'm like, and I kind of like, I get a lot of energy with people. I love people. That's like one of my hobbies, you know, to go with my friends and just, you know, be allowed a little. I'm actually small, so I think like that's probably like a coping mechanism. But like I've always been super loud, and I think it does help me after, you know, to build that. But again, just find that person that you love and just like talk to them, and I think that's it, you know. And you show your personality, and you will find your tribe. There's, you know, if you're an extrovert, there's a lot of extroverts. If you're an introvert, there's a lot of introverts. So you're gonna find those people for sure.
Oh, that's so good. I think you said it perfectly. Also, I think it's, you know, I realize more and more as the years go by that the people that you attract, or someone said in this podcast, I interviewed Dot Lang, which is a social media strategist. And she said a phrase which really resonated with me, which was like, your vibe attracts your tribe. And there's a lot of truth to that. I feel that in the beginning of my career, I was hiding a lot of things that have to do with my personality because I didn't want people to put labels on me because I was from South America, or I don't know, I don't know. Perhaps these were like the biases that I had about myself and about my own culture and stuff. But I didn't want people to judge me for where I was coming from. But then the more authentic I am, the more I speak about my story, the more I speak about who I am, where I'm coming from, and yeah, how my life is, the more I attract people that really are like me. And that's great because you create this tribe of people that are really like-minded. So I think that's such a good tip, to talk to someone that is like you or your friend, someone that you will be friends with, because you will be attracting that type of people. If you speak to that people, then you will be attracting that type of people. Exactly.
Can I point something out?
Yeah.
Because I think, did it ever happen to you that you're talking to a friend and then you're like, this could be a podcast? You know, sometimes it happens to me. You know, I'm talking to you know, Max from Lettering Daily. You know?
Yeah.
We always nerd out about life, and then obviously about lettering, and then, you know, we talk, and after an hour we're like, hey, this is actually like, look how valuable this could be, because, you know, we actually like talk about like about a lot of things, you know, and then it's so natural. We're probably like drinking a beer, and it just comes out so natural, and you know, we laugh, and like we're like, yeah, that could definitely. So yeah, that's something that I wanted to say. But yeah,
That's great. Yeah, I have a friend that lives in Canada, and we have what I call like our WhatsApp podcasts. We send each other like messages like that are 10 minutes long, and we are like considering starting a podcast, just putting together those messages. But yeah, I mean, that's such a great starting point, just to think about someone that you would like to hang out with, and talk to that person, because at the end of the day, you will be attracting that type of person, which you will be hanging out with. In your case, for instance, with Patreon, you are creating a community there that you have to hang out with every week, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's so important that you also like these people, because the more you like them, the more you will want to make things for them. So I think that's such a great tip, Jimbo. And now, Jimbo, we are introducing a new segment on the podcast, which is called Artwork in Focus. This is where we take a closer look at a specific piece of work from our guests and dive into the creative process behind it. And I love doing this because we often see the final artwork, like the nice thing on social media, but we rarely get to hear the behind the scenes story. And I want to know why certain decisions were made, what challenges came up, and what makes also this piece of work so special for you. So I'm going to share the piece that you submitted.
No pressure at all.
No pressure at all.
I don't remember which one was it, so it's actually better.
I'm going to show it to you now. So this is the piece of work. It's called I Want You Back. So first I want to start by asking, why did you choose this piece?
Whoa. So this piece, I was listening to a song by Jackson 5, you know, I Want You Back, you know, and that
I thought
it's
it was
a song
the Backstreet Boys, and I want choose
Okay, I
that.
think probably like everybody has a song in mind based on their interests. So yeah, yeah, that was it was in the morning, and I was listening to, I think it was like I was listening to, I'm a Marvel fan, and I was listening to Guardians of the Galaxy soundtrack. I have all the vinyls, because the director James Gunn has such good taste in music, and he puts together like these soundtracks that are incredible, right? And I remember I put that vinyl, and I was just like really vibing with Jackson 5. And then I wanted to actually, like, I just wanted to do something that is kind of dancey, and that's why probably like all these folds and stuff. But then after, I probably just like went another route, and I started putting leaves. I love putting natural elements in my pieces all the time. But yeah, I wanted something that it kind of dances, that kind of like, it's like each letter could be like a person, and like the whole lettering could be like a crowd, and like one is in front of the other, and they're like hugging each other and dancing, and that was kind of like a bit like the concept of the piece. And also I wanted to that's actually like a tutorial that I did for Patreon. So yeah, I wanted to do script that month, so this was kind of like perfect to show them how to do the letters from scratch, and then add the shadows and the lights, and then put these natural elements. Yeah, and that's pretty much it, Martina. There's nothing much to it.
And can you walk us a little bit through the creative process when designing it? Like, where did you start? I guess first you were playing this song, and then how did everything start? And what are kind of like the steps of your process?
Yeah, I think well, everybody has their own process, I guess, and but I think so many of us actually. I talk to so many lettering artists that we always start in a sketchbook. I don't know. I think you too. So I always get a sketchbook, and I just do a very ugly and very rough sketch. I always say this to my patrons, like, please make it ugly in the beginning, because that's the way, like, if you do five like super rough, I use the word ugly, but probably there's a better word for it. But if you do like five super fast sketches, then there's always, it's like magic, right? There is like that one sketch that you're like, hey, that's telling me something. It's trying to be like, pick me, like there is always something like this. And so I started doing this kind of like folds, but like really badly, and then after doing my pencil sketch, which the first pencil sketches, I don't have an eraser, if it's like a rough like this, because I just want to keep creating letters, and I don't want to get caught up on, like, again, I'm a perfectionist, so my mind tells me, you like this, so start making it better on paper, and start making shadows and this, and then like 5 hours later I'm still on paper, right? So I took that rough sketch, and I brought it to Procreate. That's where I do like most of my work nowadays. I realize that I just do vectors for really specific cases for clients, but other than that, like, I just do Procreate and raster work, and that's it. And then I did first the letters. I think the letters in the beginning were like dark, and then I put the background, and then I started doing the leaves. And as you will see in a lot of my pieces, I always say that I'm a little punk, because I've been always afraid of blank spaces, which as a designer, like, that's something that my teachers didn't like at all, because when you're a graphic designer, like, you have to embrace those negative spaces, and but like, I never embraced them, and probably that's what another of the reasons that I became a lettering artist. I'm always afraid of them. So you will see that in a lot of my pieces there's so much detail, and I just enjoy, that you zoom in, and you will always find something. So yeah, that's pretty much it. And I think, like, I don't know how I created the color palette, but probably, I don't know if it's this one or another one, but sometimes I think this one comes from a sweater from my mom, because sometimes, I see someone wearing something, and I'm like, can I take a photo of your sweater? You know, and like I take it. Sometimes I go to the streets and I see someone walking and I'm like zooming in with the iPhone and I'm like, this is a color palette, you know, and I'm like obsessed like that. So I think that comes from a jersey, yeah, from a sweater, I think. And I think that's it.
And what are the elements that you see here that you think like, well, that's really me, that's really Jimbo?
It's funny because if you ask my close like friends that are not involved in the lettering world, every time they see a weird kind of like script that kind of twists or something like that, they always like, oh, this is so Jimbo. And sometimes they send me, I saw this and it's so you, and I'm like, no, it's just like script lettering. It's not me. There's like a lot of people doing that. So I would say probably what's the most me is. That's interesting, but probably the mix in between something more geometric, like like these spheres around it. That if you wanna know what they are, I have no idea. So I always do like in my favorite pieces, I always do letters plus some natural element if I can, plus something that is less natural. So like the kind of like this more like geometric, non-organic shapes. I like to combine things that not necessarily like go together. So for example, now I'm actually, I have this one here, one of the prints that I did, and like lately I'm like going even crazier, and I like put plants with eyeballs and like weird type and like weird elements, and I think like when I do this that makes no sense for anybody else than myself, I think that's when I'm happy.
And if you look at this piece, is there something that you think like that turned out so good? Or it could be anything. It could be like the overall palette, color palette, or it could be also like that white swash or whatever, or the effect or whatever. Is there something that you think like, I nailed it? That's pretty good.
I'm so good. Well, I think the fact that actually it is readable, even though there is a lot going on, I think that makes me proud, because sometimes, like I think like one of the missions that we have as lettering artists is that you create beautiful letter forms, but at the same time they have to be readable, because otherwise they lose sense, right? But for me, like sometimes like I just go so crazy that you cannot even read what I'm doing, and it's fine, because I always kind of, sometimes I treat letters as illustration, and especially like for this kind of things, that this is not for a brand. This has, no intention of being on a shelf. This is not an ad for a campaign that people really need to read or something. But I think what I'm the most proud of in here is that even though there's a lot of folds, a lot of flourishes going on and everything, you can still, I think, Martina, I don't know, you tell me, but like I think you can still read what it says, which is, I'm happy about that. But I think, I think that's it. And also the shadows. I think the shadows are pretty cool.
That's great. Yeah, I agree. And also I think that's such an important differentiator of lettering as a craft, that, you are designing something in service of a message. And if you cannot read the message, then you're not doing the job right. Or it's turning into something else. It's turning into a graffiti or an illustration of something, but it's no longer a message that you're, putting across. And if you would have to change something, what are some things that you would change?
We're getting in the depths of this. Well, I think one thing that I would definitely change is the spacing in between the B and the A in the word back. I see something there that could be, but again, that's like maybe like just a millimeter or something there up that I don't know. So yeah, maybe also like the spacing in between, like the O in you, probably like I would move it slightly to the left, so I leave a bit more space on the next to the U. Probably, that's something that I was considering, but then in the end, since it was the tutorial, I was like, I cannot change it now. But the letter I, so I want you,
Yeah.
The letter I
This
has
one.
a little, yeah, it's too heavy. Like the bottom of it is a little bit too heavy, and I don't do this in any other letter. So I think I would also change that weight, and I think that's pretty much it that I would change. Yeah.
Yeah, that's. I think that's such a good comment about the I. You know, whenever I teach lettering, and specifically when it's teaching a script lettering, I speak about this concept of like whenever you have capital letters, try to design them all together so that they have the same complexity, the same weight, because oftentimes you focus too much in one of the capital letters and perhaps it's super expressive and flamboyant, and then the other one is like like and I think it's always helpful to look at the other capital letters and try to match the complexity and the weight with it.
Definitely.
And I can totally see that. And I love the shape of that. I think it's so it's still readable and still it has some complexity to it, which makes it match with the Y and the B underneath.
I always have problems with the letter I, because I'm like, I'm gonna make it a little bit less readable just because I want to make it a little bit prettier, because otherwise you just put a stick there and I'm like, well, that's it. you know
Yeah, it's a tough one. It's a tough one.
Yes, it is. I mean, here I could also probably, like, I could have put a dot as well. Like, you see so underneath back there is this like little metal kind of like circle.
Yeah.
That I put Jackson 5 in yeah, not in this version, but like it has the Jackson 5 thing, because I think it's good, to tell people like where things come from. But and here I forgot the one I sent you, but I could actually like make a lot of like another dot like this and put it on the eye probably, and make the eye a little bit simpler, and probably could have still like looked good, but I don't know. Things to try in the
but
future.
it's true. And at the same time, I feel like this looks like first in the context of what it says. I can sometimes, sometimes you have this room for playfulness. So in the context of the other words, you can take some liberties with the I and make it a little bit more unreadable, because people will know, okay, there's an I want you back, right? And I think that is, in this case, this shape is such a like a good choice, because it looks like a capital I, whereas if you will have like the other option, perhaps it will look like a lowercase I, and then it's like not grammatically correct, right? Which is, it's one of the things I always look for in a lettering piece. That is, you could be as expressive as you want, and if you're gonna add if you can add capital letters, which add a lot of expressiveness and stuff, that's great. But if it's not grammatically correct, then it's like, it's suffering a little bit.
Yeah. True. Yeah, I'll give you that one. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Sometimes
And
even though
in English language, it's so easy to use capital letters, whereas in other languages, like for instance, in German, if you use a capital letter, it changes it changes like how do you call this? Instead of being a noun, it can become a verb, or
Really?
the other way around. So really, like the nouns always have a capital letter or start with a capital letter. So if you change that in the word just randomly, then it just feels weird, or it reads weird.
Oh, wow.
And I think in Spanish as well.
Well, maybe like depending on what maybe word. Yeah, I would probably like be 1 hour now thinking though, like, but probably yeah. It can be like, it's a name, and then when it's not in capital, like it becomes a noun or something.
Yeah. So let's move. Thank you for sharing that process. I think it's so interesting to look into, how do you think about your work, and how do you go about creating your work? And I want to take this and dive into like the business side before we wrap up the session.
Right.
We touch on your beginnings, on you working for a marketing agency, and then deciding to go solo and start a studio, Shoutbam, with your partner, and you since then have built a YouTube channel and a Patreon community. So I wonder, and I think this is great because as a creative, as an artist, you have all these different income streams, and I always really encourage new or aspiring artists, or also artists that are working to build those different income streams, because it gives you a lot of leverage. So I wonder how all of this came together, or all of this developed. I know that oftentimes it's not like something that you build all at once, but you start noticing that something was successful, and then you went ahead and you started doing more of that, and then when you noticed there was a market for that, then you did this and that. So how did that develop?
Yeah, I think it's today I was listening to a YouTube video, and it made sense because I kind of did it like that. It's not with everything, but like this creator was saying that the way she sees it is that you have to create an income stream and like dedicate some time to it, and then like after you start becoming good at that and it kind of like brings you revenue, then it's time to maybe create another one, continue doing this one obviously, but then you can create another one and do this every time. Because I think like sometimes we get in the trap of like, oh yeah, we have to create a new income stream because that's, you know, what we've been told and like what works for a lot of people. And then out of a sudden, like in one day, you're like, you know what, I'm going to do affiliate marketing, products, a course, YouTube and Patreon. And it's just like, it's too much. And then you end up just like doing a little bit in each income stream, and then they all fail. So so I think that's something really important. Then if I travel in past and I see like how we got started in the studio doing, for example, brush sets for Procreate, which is something that we've been doing for a long time now. I remember, I mean, this is a story that I always say that, I remember it was like August 2016 or something like that. And I remember that we my partner and I were like in some, I think it was like, yeah, I don't remember where. It was just like in Croatia somewhere. And we were working on a project and we finished it. And I remember that day of like, we got up after, you know, we celebrated like, yay, we finished the project, blah, blah, blah. And then we get up next morning, we meet and we're like, so what today? And we're like, yeah, we have no projects. We have no It was August. I remember we're working for European or American clients, and in August nobody does anything. So I was like, okay, so now we had like probably like few thousands in the bank, and we're like, okay, can we survive like a month or two with this? And we're like, probably not, you know. And then we started talking about doing digital products, and that was more like an idea that we had because you know, we don't, like, when you don't have the clients, then you can be dedicating your time into creating something else that could be passively sold after, which, you know, the whole passive income thing is not passive at all.
It's never passive. Yeah.
It's never passive. I wish it was passive, but it's not. So that was the idea, and then we collaborated with this marketplace called Design Cuts, and so like with them they helped a lot as well, and they started doing a lot of you know, promotion for us as well, which was something that, you know, we couldn't control. And then after also our friend Max from Lettering Daily also helped us a hell lot with the whole product thing and like creating more and more and more. And at some point, you know, we got convinced that we should open our own store and start doing, you know, like sales in our store. And that's what we did. And that's what we have today. And then after a while, I created a course with a company, but then I saw that the sales were down at some point and that I couldn't control what they were doing with my course. So I've decided to actually start a YouTube channel. We started a YouTube channel. I started doing tutorials there. I started doing courses. I started doing more and more tutorials. And then at some point when the whole product thing was working and all these kind of like tutorials on YouTube were kind of working, then I was like, you know what about creating a subscription platform, like something that, you know, we could teach a lot of people, create a community that it's super inclusive, that, you know, everybody can share whatever they want. Like sometimes, you know, and that's the Patreon page that we created like maybe like 18 months ago now. And it's now grown into, now we are 115, which is something to celebrate because
Amazing.
you know, doing a Patreon community is kind of difficult because you start in the beginning, you have to put the same amount of work in the beginning than now, and in the beginning you're doing it for like 20 people and you're getting like $200, and you're like, I'm putting all this time, but you know, it's like the long game, right? So now Patreon, it starts paying off. But you know, there was times that I was like, you know what, this is so complicated, because like I see that there was a point I remember when I was doing like because we do like 2 tutorials per month, like full-fledged tutorials, long format, and then again, that's like a lot of work. And I remember, I think like maybe like a year ago, remember that I was going from like 50 to 70 patrons, and then back to 50, and then back to 70, and then back to 50, you know. And it's like so complicated to keep motivated. But then, you know, like the other income streams, you know, were helping. Doing live sessions as well helped a lot. Then, you know, doing affiliate marketing with some brands helped a lot. Then being on Instagram and also getting partnerships from different brands helped a lot. And then again, now that, you know, I had all this like little money coming from everywhere that I could make a living with, I could also like choose what clients I work for. So nowadays, like if there is a lawyer coming to me and they want a logo type, I'm not gonna make it. I'm gonna send a friend of mine. But if there is a brand, like I don't know, like I did something for a magazine last month, or like every year I used to do like these graphics for like this electronic festival in Frankfurt, here in Germany. So that is things that like I say yes to because they come for my style, right? So like it gave me that freedom. And again, I probably like talked a lot, and I try to compact everything here. So like if there's something that's not clear, please tell me.
It's great because I feel like what you said in the beginning of like, there's so much truth in this thing of like income streams. In fact, yesterday I was teaching my membership as well. So we have a membership in my company that is called Big Ampersand, where we are guiding lettering artists into building their careers, mastering hand lettering, and we offer monthly trainings as well. And yesterday I was running a training. Sometimes the trainings are technical, sometimes the trainings are about the business. And yesterday we were talking about income streams, and I presented like 12 income streams, possible income streams for them. And then I told them like, hey, I want to just walk you through all these possibilities, just to open your mind, show you a menu of things. I bet there's a lot of other things you could do, but just in terms of like opening your mind to all the possibilities you have. And then at the end, I said like, the fact that there's so many possibilities doesn't mean that they are your possibilities or that there are possibilities that are suitable for you. Because sometimes you realize like you dive into something and you realize like, I'm not done for this, or I don't enjoy this. And you don't need to just keep it running just because it's another income stream. And oftentimes I think when we speak about income streams, you imagine like some juggler with thousands of balls in the air, and it's like, no, it's about like choosing a few things that you can dive into and you can go deep. And I think that's such a great example what you did, because it started with one thing, which is, you know, you had these brushes that you use for your creative work, if I'm not wrong, like you were already using them, and then you decided you use an existing marketplace, so you didn't create your shop all at once from the beginning. You use an existing marketplace, someone else's audience as well. Like, so you tapped into someone else's audience. And once you found like market product fit, is that correct? Yeah.
I
So
think it is.
once you found like that overlap between what you had to offer and people want, then you said like, okay, let's go deep. Let's create our own online shop. And then after that, you went into like, hey, let's teach people how to use these brushes as well. And then you turn that into YouTube. And then people that visited your YouTube realized like, hey, I want to go deeper with Jimbo and learning from him. So I'm going to join his Patreon, where he gives me like even longer tutorials. And I also get to chat with him and to ask him questions. So it's just like that one seed of the brush, how it expanded into all these different things that feed one thing, you know, like that at the end, is you have all these different platforms to speak about how do you create your work, the tools that you use, and people go to this place to learn from you and to also consume your product. So I think that's such a good example of how you develop an income stream that at the same time, that income stream, that one seed opens up in a lot of different formats, right? So it opens up into the YouTube channel and the online classes and the Patreon and all that stuff, which at the same time are different income streams, and the affiliate marketing, as you said. So I love that as an example. Now I'm thinking this is a lot to handle, I can imagine. So, and I wonder what were like the challenges along the way, and some moments where you got to learn, okay, maybe this is not for me, or maybe I'm gonna quit that and I'm gonna focus on this. What were some of the biggest challenges that you found out throughout the way in this process of expanding this one seed that turned into all these different platforms?
That's so interesting, and I feel like you and I also talked about it, and in the past, and it's something that as right now I'm like running the business alone, because my partner is now doing a clothing brand. So right now I'm alone, and I'm like, okay, do you want to hire someone? And that's the thing that we talked about, and there's a little part of me that wants to grow this. And then there is another part of me that tells me to, you know what, like, it's good the way it is, because you don't feel that pressure of like someone depends on you, blah, blah, blah. I know, so there is like these two little voices inside my head of like, yeah, continue doing like that. But then, there comes days that, you just don't burn out, but like, that you could be putting more energy into some other things. So for example, there's things that definitely, like, my website, we obviously like hired someone to create our website. So like, when it comes to like these freelance gigs, like obviously, like if we need an animation, we're going to hire a friend. If we need a website, we're going to hire someone. If we need something, we've been hiring people for these things. But when it comes to things that like every day, every day I have to, if I put like 1 week, right, I should do things for my website. I should write a blog for the SEO. I should post something on YouTube. I should post something on all my little communities, on my broadcast channel on Instagram. I should, reply comments. I should, so there is this thing that like sometimes you have to do it all. And, it's like this last couple of years, it's common, like sometimes I'm just like, are you enjoying certain parts of this job, or you just don't? And I realized that the thing that obviously I'm not a, well, I am, I'm still a graphic designer, but I'm more like an artist, and I think like an artist. And so what I like the most is drawing. So if there comes weeks that I cannot draw because I need to, put content out, or I have to teach certain things, but I want to draw something else because that's, and I cannot because I have to teach. So you continue doing these things, and sometimes like you really have to like pause and be like, okay, so maybe sending newsletters is good because I want to be myself, but maybe like I could send a script to someone and then they could turn it into a newsletter, and I could save 1 hour, and then that hour I could be drawing. So there's these things that like definitely I don't enjoy, and I'm not a person who enjoys a lot social media, even though you probably enter in my Instagram and you're like, oh, like he likes these things and stuff. I rather like doing my close community, for example, in Patreon, because I kind of like get a bit more personal. I know everybody. We can talk about things. I know that if I send something to them, they're gonna receive it, not like in Instagram or like whatever, So there's definitely things that kind of like, get too outside of my artistic mind, and probably I don't enjoy as much. I like learning about them. That's the thing. I love learning about SEO. But then once I learned it, I know that the response would be like, now that you learned it, now you can hire someone. And I know, Martina, you would tell me that because you already did. So yeah, definitely there is things that I don't enjoy, and I'm still navigating like what to do in the future.
Yeah, and I think that's a tough one, especially for artists and creatives, because the work I totally understand that. And I know that now I'm like past this stage where I have a team and like, I cannot imagine working without it anymore. But there was a moment where I couldn't imagine working with someone else and someone else doing some of the things that I used to do, because the work we create is so unique, so coming from inside us, that we think like, well, no one would do it like I do it, and probably they won't. But sometimes sometimes I work with my team for so long that sometimes I feel that throughout the years they have learned to think and do things the way I do it. And I think there's a lot of like wanting to go down that route of teaching someone, because at the end of the day you're teaching a team to think the way you do, and to and also you want to engage them in your mission. But I totally get where you're at right now, and I know that it's not an easy one, but I can tell you that it is possible, and I'm looking forward to see it happening for you.
I know you are. I think it's just like this, I think once I get rid of like certain things of like, I can write because like I hired a marketing team like long time ago, and I was working with them for like 6 months, but I realized they did a good job, but I realized that by the end of the day, it's always nice to have these people with you, that they are trying to find what's best for the business, because they get super involved in your studio, and I think that's what's happening to you. So
yeah, I get it. So Jimbo, I want to look into the future now as we wrap up this this conversation, and I want to know what excites you about the lettering industry right now and coming on. An easy one, right?
Here, mic drop. What interests you about the lettering industry?
But what excites you? What are the things that you see coming or happening already that you think like, this is cool? Yeah.
No, it's a very good question. Don't get me wrong. It's just like, certainly like one thing that excites me is that there is more and more people doing this. And I think people, when I started teaching, people were a little bit scared of the word lettering. I feel like everybody, was going into the illustration path. There's a lot of great illustrators having like massive YouTube channels and stuff. But now I saw that like the word lettering is kind of like, getting in the minds of people. Like people are not so scared anymore. So I think that democratization of, is that a word? Yes, it is. I think of the word lettering. I think it's like what excites me the most. Definitely there is a lot of things that excite me about letters, and I think it's like, I remember, like back when I was saying before that I was in Estonia, I remember that I was doing everything in paper using Adobe apps, and it would take me ages to create like a nice lettering piece. And I feel like nowadays, like the level of entry is like very low, because you can get like a secondhand iPad, you can get Procreate, and then you can like start doing colorful pieces in like you do a few strokes and it looks okay already. Which before, I remember that, when I was doing personal pieces, it would take me like a week, go to Illustrator, do the vectors, do this, do that, And so like, I think like technology is also like making it very, very accessible for people. And I think, those two things probably could sum it up. For sure there is more. Like probably I'm going to hang up and I'm going to be like, I should have said that, but yeah.
Totally. But the democratization and accessibility is definitely a time of, or a thing of our times, and accessibility to tools, but also to creative tools, but also to marketing tools. So if you look at the way you market your own business, like you have access to, and I'm always speaking about this, like we're in a moment where you have access to powerful marketing tools that before were in the hands of just a few people. Before, like advertising your business was about like buying $5,000 space on a magazine. And nowadays you can open an Instagram account and build a following or a YouTube channel and promote your products with just a few clicks and with no upfront income upfront investment. Of course, you have to invest time. It's not like something that happens overnight, but still, like this accessibility, I think it also happens in a lot of different industries, and it also happens in our creative industry. So just to close this amazing conversation we have had, Jimbo, which I'm so glad about. So for our listeners that are thinking, I want to do what Jimbo does, but there are so many people out there doing the same thing. I go on Instagram and there's lettering artists everywhere. I go on YouTube and I see a lot of YouTube videos about lettering. What is one thing that you could say to these people that are thinking, I'm not even getting into this because there's no space for me?
Well, that's like the clearest answer to that is the same as I would give when people are trying to find their own style or niche, because I feel like everybody is so unique, and I do think that, you know, your like joined experiences, your life, everything that happened to you, that goes into who you are as a lettering artist, or like whatever you wanna, do. So I feel like, your childhood matters, like what you were watching as a child matters, what you like right now, like what do you do outside the lettering? Like you hang out with people, you go to bars, what do? You go for a run, like that makes you a very unique person. And I think like, I know it sounds pretty, like, yes, you're amazing. I'm not trying to say that it's gonna be easy, but I think like your experiences and like the people you learn from, the people you talk to every day, how you act in the morning when you go for a coffee, all these things make you the artist that you are, or gonna be, or like can be. So I think that's it. And nowadays there is so many ways to learn that, like, I feel like if you learn from 50 people, like you're gonna include your life, who you are, your experiences, what you like with those artists, so like I would say like it's good to learn from different, like people in my Patreon, they're always like sharing results from tutorials by other artists in the Patreon community, and they were asking me like a couple of weeks ago, like, is it okay if we share? And I'm like, yes, anything that you do, like anything that drives you mad when you're in the iPad, just like please share it here, so I feel like they're all like developing their own styles, and like it's not just anymore what I teach them, that they just like do it and that's it. There's a lot of times that you're like, oh, I was saying to do this kind of shadows in this exercise, but then they took someone else's teachings into that and they put it there, and that's making them, being super unique artists. So I think like that, it's a mix in between who you learn from and your experiences, and that's gonna make you your own unique lettering artist.
That's so good. And it brings us back a little bit like as a circle back to what we started talking about, which is this personal brand of yours, where you were saying, well, my personality, the way I speak to people, the way I am, this is what makes me me. This is what makes me stand out, together with the work that I do. But I think it has to do a lot with the lenses through which you see the world, and how that has an impact on the work you create, and also the people that you attract, right? Because if you show yourself authentically, you will always attract certain people, and people will be drawn to you, and perhaps will not be drawn to a different lettering artist because they just don't resonate with that. So
exactly,
thank you so much for that. And I'm gonna, before we go, we play a closing game, which is called Complete the Sentence. So basically what we do is that I start the sentence and you continue it, or you complete it.
Oh, wow.
Are you ready? Surprise.
Oh, yeah. I am super ready for something so unexpected. Yeah, come on. Do it. Go.
Okay, Jimbo. The one tool I can live without is?
The iPad Pro.
My friends always tease me about.
Can you say it again?
My friends always tease me about, or always laugh at me about.
My obsession with letters.
If I had an unlimited budget, I would.
Buy 1,000 iPads. No. No, I'm kidding. I'll probably like build the YouTube studio of my dreams.
Oh, good. Yeah. The one that you push a button and it,
Everything is lit up.
No setting up the camera and stuff.
There's like 1,000 cameras. Like everything is controlled by my voice. Like, hey, turn on.
So good.
Yeah.
A dream project I haven't done yet is
creating a clothing brand.
success as a creative means.
Waking up happy in the morning.
Right now is the perfect time to
Go create.
Yay! Jimbo, thank you so much for being on the show today. Where can people find you and follow your work? We're going to add this to the show notes.
So people can find me at shoutbam.com. That's our website there. You will find all the products and all that there. You will also find freebies. So if you go there, you will find a lot of freebies if you join the community newsletter. So that's a good one. Then on my Patreon, so it's patreon.com/shoutbam. Then also on YouTube, I also share a lot of things there, and also on my Instagram at Jimbo Bernaus.
Amazing. Jimbo, was so good to talk to you today, and I bet that our listeners enjoyed it. We're going to add all of this to our show notes so that you can find Jimbo and all his amazing stuff that he's doing everywhere. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in, and see you on the next episode of Open Studio. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks, everybody.
So this is it. I hope you loved this episode. You can find me, the host of the show, on social networks at Martina Flor on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. If you have a question or comments, go to martinaflor.com/podcast, where you can see previous episodes, find show notes, and send voice memos with your comments and questions. You can also watch these episodes on YouTube. Just go to martinaflor.com/YouTube to find them. You can, of course, listen to all our episodes on your favorite podcast platform. If you loved this episode, subscribe to this podcast. And if you leave us a review, it will help others find us. Thank you all for listening, and see you in the next episode of Martina Flor's Open Studio. Bye-bye.